Alright, yeah, welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be taking part in some more Historic Artisan with a list that I imagine is pretty close to the top of the tier list as far as Artisan's concerned, and we're going to be playing some blue-white auras. So I've played a list like this in the past for Historic Artisan, but I think it was more of a flyers list back in the day. Since then, there's been quite a number of different cards that have entered the format, and obviously the deck is changing up a little bit as well. So what is auras? I'm sure most of you already know, but for those who don't, the idea is we're going to take a hard-to-kill creature, something like Seasoned Hallerblade from M21 or a Danto Vanguard from Ixalan, and these both have the ability to just become indestructible for very little cost whatsoever. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attach lots and lots of auras onto them to make them very large. So the big ones that you want to keep in mind are Staggering Insight and Curious Obsession. These two are the engine pieces of our deck. Staggering Insight being the better version, blue and white for an enchant creature. That creature gets +1/+1 and lifelink, which is actually quite important. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So, giving lifelink to something like a Danto Vanguard, which gets +2/+2 on it, +2 on its attack, basically means that it pays for its own indestructible cost when it attacks. So if your opponent wants to block with it, you can pay that 4 life, and you haven't lost anything. You haven't gained anything, but you also haven't lost anything. Unless, of course, you've got some additional enchantments on, which we'll get to shortly after. But giving lifelink that way is one very nice way. It's also going to give you the ability to draw loads of cards, which means you can find all your other auras in your list. Things like Curious Obsession, which is the 1 mana version of Staggering Insight. This one is cheaper, but it comes with a bigger drawback. So it gives you that +1/+1 and that card draw ability. But it does say at the end of your end step, if you didn't attack with a creature this turn, you have to sacrifice Curious Obsession. Now, that's not really going to be an issue for us unless we're attaching it to a pretty weak creature that's not Hallerblade or Vanguard, because we're always going to be wanting to attack with these, and we should, in theory, always have the ability to activate their indestructibility. So at the very least, we can attack in and discard a card with Hallerblade or something like that, and we'd trade off with one of their creatures, discard one of our cards. If they don't block, we draw several cards. That's kind of the idea. We've got plenty of evasion, though. We have things like Cartouche of Knowledge, which gives us +1/+1 and flying. We can also give First Strike as well, so if something has Death Touch on the other end, then the First Strike means that we deal damage first, and we don't have to discard to give indestructibility or something like that. The only sweepers in the format right now are really Cry of the Carnarium, which is a -2/-2. Those do hit Vanguard and Seasoned Hallerblade, of course. However, if we're going to be attaching loads of auras to them, then we can play around that by making them larger than that is the case anyway. So really the only thing we have to worry about at that point is something like bounce effects, which you don't really see too much. And we do technically have Alseid of Life's Bounty, the pay one and sacrifice to give protection from the color of our choice. So bounce spells being blue, we'll play blue. We'll only really drop off these 3 enchantments here. Something to keep in mind again, but if it does mean that you get to keep your creature with some enchantments attached to it, then you were going to lose these anyway, and you've probably drawn plenty off of them anyway as well. Finally, let's get into the other auras that we've got. Sentinel's Eyes and All That Glitters. All That Glitters gives +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment you control, so all the auras we've put on before it make these stronger and stronger as time goes on. This is how we make a very large creature that must be blocked. That's the idea, at least. And then we've got Sentinel's Eyes, +1/+1 and Vigilance, which means we can attack and block with them, making combat absolutely useless for our opponent. 2 copies of Ornithopter gives us the 0-drop 0/2 flyer, which allows us then to attach something like a Curious Obsession onto it on turn 2. Do not attach this on a creature that is not attacking. It will drop off. Don't forget that. But on turn 2, you can attach an Obsession plus another 1-drop, for example, like Sentinel's Eyes, and then you can swing in with that. It's a great way to get that card advantage going early, and you want to make sure that your Alseid or your Selfless Saviors are back to protect your Ornithopter at that point. Selfless Savior gives indestructible by sacrificing itself, and Alseid, as we mentioned, gives the protection. We can make creatures as well off the Cartouche of Solidarity, because it's not just a +1/+1 and First Strike, it actually also makes you a Vigilant Warrior, which is a decent target for your auras as well, but not as resilient as something like Hallowblade and Vanguard. So our opening hand's going to want to be one of these two cards, preferably, followed by one of these two cards to give ourselves some card advantage. Otherwise, just the ability to make them very large should actually close out the game for us easy enough. But yeah, if you do enjoy the content and you want to see more of it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment down below, all that jazz, and let's continue, shall we? This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Okay then, let's have a look. See, we have turn one nothing, but after that we can drop down Hallowblade and suit it up with many different attachments. Yeah, I'm happy with this one actually. This seems pretty reasonable. So as long as Hallowblade comes down and doesn't just immediately die to minus effects or exile, then I think we're in a really good spot to win this game, for sure. The Narset sleeves scare me a little bit. Looks like it's blue-black control. I just don't know what they do about indestructible creatures until they get to Cry the Carnarium mana, to be honest, so being on the play here is quite nice. Just got all the thriving lands. So I guess what they'll want to do, and we're going to play Cartouche now just because we want to draw the cards so that Narset doesn't stop us doing it later. And then we also want to make it 3 power as well, because if we don't do that, then Cry the Carnarium can kill it, and we can't really do anything about that. So dodging a Spell Pierce here is kind of ideal. Alright, so we got ourselves a 5-3. We got fodder in our hand that we can discard if our opponent has a Fatal Push, which they do. Alright, so discard. We'll get rid of the Sentinel's Eyes, because we can cast that from our graveyard. And yeah, we could really do with some card advantage at this point. Bloodchief's Thirst. No, I don't think I need the lands, so let's get rid of that. One's running out of removal. Okay. I'm gonna try and remove it again. Gonna go for an Eliminate. We'll get rid of the Alseed. And draw a Tranquil Cove. Alright, well, at this point, I think what I might want to do is spread my enchantments around a little bit. All the Glitters is fantastic, actually. We'll want to discard the Tranquil Cove to our opponent's next removal spell. This just means if they want to attack our Seasoned Hallowblade, which is the most amount of damage we can present right now, then they're going to have to deal with our other creature at the same time. Okay. So I'll want to make sure that I've got lots of cards in hand. So right now I could do something like Staggering Insight on the 3/3 token. So they either have to take more damage. Well, I probably don't want to do that actually, because I've got no way to protect the 2/2. Yeah, I think I want to just stick it on the Hallowblade actually. And I suppose we could go with the Sentinel's Eyes on the Warrior then, at that point. Our graveyard doesn't matter. We'll get it out of Cry the Carnarium range, and it also allows us to push through the Guard Mage, which will be chump blocking anyway. Alright. So our opponent could be stockpiling removal. They'll have to have stockpiled quite a fair bit, because they have to have 3 removal spells in their hand right now to stop my Hallowblade from getting in. And from that point forward, if they don't have a creature in play, which there's nothing really that can block Hallowblade at this point or destroy it, they actually essentially need to block it, because the card advantage this is generating is paying for its indestructibility. So I think the fact that they've removed tried to remove it 3 times says a lot about this deck and how good it actually is. So this looks like Esper Control taken down, I guess. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, we're on the play. We don't have any blue mana. But we do have a turn 1 Alseed into a Sentinel's Eye, so at the very least we can get some pressure on while we wait for our draws. It's not the best hand in the world, but I don't think it's necessarily worth mulling away, to be honest. Like, if we drew an Adanto Vanguards, there's Healer's Hawk, unbanned, unbroken. So this is going to be like blue-white flyers then? Or Pride Mates. I think I just want to suit up Alseed. I'm not sure they can do too much about this. If we can gain life, then that means we can take the damage from Ajani's Pride Mates and whatnot. Sentinel's Eyes on the Healer's Hawk. Maybe they're actually a mono-white auras list themselves, actually. Does that mean I want to just keep suiting up on Alseed? I think it does. If they're playing auras, that means that they're not actually trying to interact with us whatsoever. So this is actually just a race of who can deal the most damage, essentially. And we're currently ahead on that race. But it's going to come down to us not drawing blue mana, or our opponent getting all the glitters, I think will be the deciding factor here. So they're going to hit me for 4. Pacifism. Okay, we lose. And we weren't drawing blue anyway. I'm just going to move on. I don't think it's worth playing out any further than that. That's just as simple as it's going to be. So, next game. Alrighty then, this hand is honestly fantastic. It's got turn 1 Selfless Savior, turn 2 Season Hallowblade. This means that we can sack the Savior to protect the Hallowblade if we don't want to discard, but we also have a backup creature as well. And then turn 3, we Staggering Insight up the Hallowblade and start drawing cards to replace for that discard effect. So this hand's pretty good. The only thing it doesn't stop is exile-based effects. That's really the weakness of this deck, but they don't exist too much in this format anyway, so they're kind of an accepted fact, we'll say. Fearless Fledgling. Okay. And we did get an Adanto Vanguard. Which one's better, actually? It's probably the pay 4 is better because the insight attaches to it nicer. We gain the 4 off the combat that we get in with, so yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm actually even going to try and offer a trade with the Fledgling since it's a 1-1 now, but next turn when they play the land it'll be a 2-2. So I might as well at least offer the trade because we're going to be fighting this thing off for quite some time. I don't think it'll actually get too large for us to be bothered by it though, since our deck tries to grow very large very quickly. And then they got a Nam Nam. Alright, so they get in for 2. Nam Nam being a Death Toucher makes things a little awkward. However, we have a Cartouche, so that we don't have to care about that. So let's go Staggering Insight, Lifelink +1/+1, and then let's give First Strike so we don't have to pay the 4. And swing on in. So 5/3, First Striking, Lifelink. Anything that blocks dies immediately. If they don't block, I draw a card. Sweet. They are looking to swing over for about 6 next turn, most likely, but I can swing over for 7 on my turn. I'm also gaining life as well, so it's a little bit more of a powerful swing. So there's a land. +1/+1 and flying. I do like the Fledglings quite a lot. They are pretty good. I'm gonna need something like an All That Glitters pretty soon as well. Okay, so we got ourselves a land, which I think I'll play. We're not likely to care too much about the future cards that we get, and we're always attacking in because we can pay 4 whenever we want anyway. I might as well just play this out. I suppose I could... I shouldn't have actually played that out, because if I draw all the glitters here, I'll want to play it on my Vanguard. So they're going to chump block and we gain 7. We don't draw a card because we didn't deal damage to a player. Flying spell would be nice, and all the glitters would be nice. Hydra's growth is a huge problem. So that doubles the amount of counters, and our opponent just managing to hit those land drops every time. Props to you, opponent, for being better at me than drawing cards. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. I need to draw good cards, so here we go. That's not good cards. Alright, fair enough, so... I could swing in with everything. They're always going to block the Vanguard if they don't want me to draw cards. Yeah, I think I'm just going to all attack here. I need to swing a little bit more powerfully. That's actually really, honestly, what I wanted to see here. The question is, do I want to keep it? It's probably better than a Selfless Savior. I'll say that for it. So we gain 7. We draw 2. Cartouche of Knowledge is really good. So that's a redraw and an ability to block the Fearless Fledgling. Another Vanguard. Might as well play it out. Okay. Renata. If you hit another land drop, I swear to God. Oh my. Opponent. Send me a link to the masterclass of top decking, please. I beg you. Alright, so it actually costs us a lot less to do this. Oh, they've had enough. Fair enough. So, instead of taking 10, I can block and pay 4. So I'm only taking 4 from this Fearless Fledgling. I think that's the reason maybe why they scooped it up, because they realized that that's actually just the reality of this situation. And then I can just pay 1 here, or even another 4 on the Vanguard if I wanted to do it that way. And then I can swing back out as well. They are forced to block with this... Actually, they can't even block with this Fledgling now, because they've left all their flyers back. So, and this stops being flying at the end of turn, so I would actually swing back and win. I guess that's actually why they scooped, because they actually do lose. Never mind. I would have figured it out on my upkeep, of course, when everything dropped off. Sweet. That was really good drawing for our opponent, though. When a land is your best draw and you just find it every time, it's pretty good. Yeah, I've been looking at counters magic, and Fearless Fledgling's up there. I never actually considered Hydra's growth with it, though. Or Narnum Renegade, to be honest. I don't know if this card's worth playing. Yeah. You need it with a format with fetch lands, I think. If you can play this on turn 1, that's when it's worth playing. But yeah, anyway, next game. Okay then, let's have a look. We've got an Adanto Vanguard. Nothing for turn 1, but that's fine. Adanto Vanguard should get us pretty far, honestly, especially on the play. I think we can probably make that large enough to not care about Cry of the Carnarium if our opponent's on that. Honestly, I think Cry of the Carnarium's potentially, or at least in that ballpark of removal, is the only thing we really have to worry about. So, I think our opponent is on the same deck. Not seen our opponent playing auras this entire time until I started playing it, so it just goes to show that I'm pretty certain that the good old algorithm of deck strength matchmaking is well into effect. That's a pretty good pickup, actually. Deck strength algorithm basically is the one that pits you against mirror matches all the time, because it's not very well made. Yeah, let's just get in for 5 first striking damage here. We don't have lifelink, but we do have the ability to pay 4 if we want to, or chump block with our 1/1. You would run Banishing Light, wouldn't you? That would be the perfect answer. Don't see that very often, but our opponent's got it. Alright, well, now we're relying on our token, which is not too bad, because we got a double all the glitters. If our opponent has another Banishing Light, we lose, and that's going to be kind of a tilt, but let's get him for 5. That's the nice of someone who had a second Banishing Light. I really hate that. Siona. Okay. Maybe not. So they get to go search for an aura. And whenever you attach an aura, they may get a 1/1 white human soldier token. Gonna go with Warbriar's Blessing, which is a fight enchantment. It's not going to be too relevant as long as I can be larger than our opponent at all times. Which so far, so good on that one. Now, we can give protection from white with our Alseed, but it will drop off every single one of our enchantments, so we're not really saving too much by doing that. Now I'm going to go for a chump. They can also just go for the Warbriar's Blessing here and fight my Alseed. Opponent says good game. Decides they've had enough. Fair enough. I mean, it's not over, but yeah, I guess maybe they've only got one Banishing Light in their deck. Yeah, I don't know. Next game, I suppose. Okay then, we have decent mana, we've got one of our better creatures, and decent auras to attach to it, honestly. The only thing we're really lacking is card advantage, so we'd love to see specifically a Staggering Insight, but I would also accept Curious Obsession, or at the very least a Cartouche of Knowledge, so that we don't have to maybe block Death Touches if that's what our opponent's playing with. Anything of that sort. But either way, this hand's fine. It could be a little bit less fine if our opponent runs Banishing Lights and, you know, other things like that. But only if we don't draw a backup creature, which we've just done, so pretty good. Alright, so what is our opponent playing? Fearless Fledgling. Alright, we've seen this before. Game, stop giving me creatures. I actually don't need them. This is too much. You only really want your one creature, a protection creature, and your backup creature, and that's it. What we've got here is our one creature 3 times over. So, really not in the right state of mind for this one. That's kind of annoying. Tranquil Cove. It's only kind of annoying, though, because we can do all the glitters. Make it a 4/2. Then a Sentinel's Eyes. This is +2/+2. So that means I got a 6/4, so I don't have to discard to swing past the Seasoned Hallowblade, nor do I have to discard to block it. So that's really good for us. And if I really do need to protect my Hallowblade, then I can discard a spare Hallowblade. The problem is, I think if our opponent's going to have any kind of removal, it's going to be Pacifisms and Banishing Lights, like we've seen already. They would be pretty not ideal. Alright, so that's got a landfall trigger, same as the Fearless Fledgling. These are all getting to be large creatures. Would really love a Staggering Insight, so our opponent is forced to trade off their creatures or give us card advantage. Oof. That's not as good. That just means our opponent can block a 1/1. Adanta Vanguard's not helping either. So I think I'll play a spare Hallowblade, but I'll do it post-combat. So for now, I guess I might as well suit up another Hallowblade. My concern here is that Fearless Fledgling will eventually threaten my life total. Gonna take 8. Wow. Opponent goes to 6. Well, if they swing in with the Fledgling or don't have an Evolving Wilds to block with it, If I draw any kind of flying, I just win the game. So it's a bit of a weird not block there, to be honest. So we want Cartouche of Knowledge. That is an I win the game card. Taking 4 in the air. Taking a little bit more in the air. This is getting quite spooky. Well then. Huh. Down to 1. Come on! That is... That's not good. Right? That's not good. If they know how to play around this, it's not good. So what they can do is they can block with Selfless Savior and sack it, so I can't gain the life off of this. Also, of course, the backswing's not very pleasant for us either. Yeah, and sack. So now their swing is not good for us. We had to kind of pressure our opponent. I don't think there's really any ifs or buts about it because all they have to do is draw a land, and that's 40% of their deck most likely. There it is. Yeah, so we're just dead to the fledgling anyway. But the rest of the team couldn't get in past my Hallow Blade, so as long as they didn't draw a land there, we had a chance of winning. But yeah, just missed on that one. That's a bit of a shame. Selfless Savior definitely crushed us there. If we'd have managed to gain the life, if they hadn't have remembered the block and sack, we win that game probably. But wasn't meant to be. Okay, we're in. This looks like the nut draw, so we're going to keep it. We've got turn 1 Selfless Savior, turn 2 Adanto Vanguard. After that, turn 3 Staggering Insight Cartouche, giving us a life-linking first striking Adanto Vanguard that draws us cards. So, short of our opponent having exile for that, I'm pretty happy with where we end up being after that situation. Being on the play, I believe that also means that we can play around Cry the Carnarium, which would be our worst nightmare on the draw. And our opponent presents a deck that cannot beat ours. So, we're pretty happy with it. I'm going to swing in with the Selfless Savior because I'm happy to trade off with the Scorch Spitter. We have a pay 4 for indestructibility, and that's honestly not going to be a problem. Like, we could pay 8 here if they want a double shock. I'm not going to block because I don't want to pay 4 to stop 2 damage. And, you know, this won't stop them from triggering Spectacle for Skewer the Critics and Light Up the Stages. Run amok. 4/4 Trample. Yeah, it definitely would not have been worth blocking there. Okay, so let's make a blocker. And +1/+1. Let's make +1/+1 and card draw. And let's get swinging. Gain 5 back. Back up to 20. Our opponent will explode any second now. Since I'm gained 5 life off of every attack, I'm happy to pay 8 life of it to stop our opponent from doing anything this turn. Like, they can upgrade their 3 damage burn spells to 4 damage just by pointing at the Vanguard. This is true. Once I've got an Insight and potentially something else attached to it, though, then there will be no trade-ups for them whatsoever, and the swing back will pretty much guarantee that I win. You can tell that they can't really win, because it's mono-red and they're taking their time now, which mono-red doesn't do. You know, I was actually expecting to get roped. Seeing the land there brings me joy. But yeah, with I actually could also sack my Selfless Savior. This is also a thing. Frenzied Rage, give it Menace. What a weird little list. I thought this was going to be Cavalcade, so I was about to mention that's unbanned now in Artisan. Alright, so what you're seeing here is a Magic player torturing themselves. They're playing a matchup that they can't win, or even come close to winning. Unless we draw loads of lands. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. So I'm going to play an untapped land here, because I can give protection if I want to. I don't think I want to, but the option's there. I can even double block and gain 2 and gain a life as well. Opponents at 5, they're forced to block. We're several turns in, and they haven't got me below my starting life total. This is the reason to play blue-white auras. Except for maybe not a list that looks like this. This is a very wild one, for sure. It looks like one that wants to run Cavalcade. Heartfire. No. It looks like it wants to run Cavalcade, but then they run cards like Frenzied Rage, and I guess Run Amok does kind of work in that scenario. Alright, that is a deal sealer. We can even give protection from red right now, so it becomes unblockable. And swing on in. We didn't even need the additional aura there, since the attack gives us +2/+0. Yeah, this is an easy way to do your dailies right here, for sure. Mono red versus blue white life gain auras. Nope. Just nope right out of this matchup. Alright, we've made it in, and we have a hand. It certainly is. This is a keep. It certainly is. I don't know whether or not I want to play an Alseid on turn 1. If I played one on turn 1, then I don't have this Tranquil Cove. Now then, Cartouche of Knowledge. I would want to play that next turn, so I'm going to go with the Tranquil Cove, and we're going to play an Ornithopter. Our opponent is on the Cycling deck, which has Zenith Flare banned, but it doesn't have Dranith Stinger banned, and obviously Flourishing Fox as well. Our opponent, with 2 Cyclers in hand, means that I'm not going to just throw away an Ornithopter unnecessarily. They're at least threatening it so that they can go for a Dranith Stinger. I could offer to slow them down for that reason. This game's going to come down to getting a life-linking creature in play, I think. And making it very large, so I probably actually just want to go with an Alseid here. And pass. What removal would our opponent have? I don't think they really run any, to be honest, but I guess you never know. They certainly have a very large board, and this is kind of why we need a big life linker, so I can block these Flourishing Foxes without having to worry about my life total or anything like that. So, a Stinger deals 1, pumps the Flourishing Foxes. I would love Sentinel's Eyes plus all the glitters here. That allows me to attack and gain life and then block and gain life. All the glitters giving really good pumping as well, no matter what kind of auras we get. Well, we didn't find those. But we will go with an all the glitters here. Make a 4/4. So I'm not going to be able to block with my Alseid, so I'm just going to attack. I suppose I could block and sack, but I can still do that now. I can block both of these, sack the Selfless Savior to protect the Ornithopter if I want to. I just need another All the Glitters, or a Sentinel's Eyes, which would go really well with a Cartouche swinging over the top as well. It's a tough one, honestly. I just don't necessarily think we've got the start we need to win this one. Holding back with the Flourishing Fox. Right, well, they plan on cycling then. I would love to actually... force them into cycling here. Not that it really makes a difference, because we just know there's a virtual 3 attached to this. It's actually a virtual 6. So they're hitting me for 12 potentially here. So I want to block, I think. I don't think I can take 12. And then we'll protect the Ornithopter. But yeah, they're trying to leave back the Flourishing Fox, because they know it's difficult for me to attack into what they've got here. But I have the Cartouche of Knowledge now, so I can swing over the top, make that 4 points a waste of time for them. That's where I was really hoping that we'd draw a Sentinel's Eyes, but instead we're going to go with an Adanto Vanguard. Swing for 6 over the top. Vanguard means that we only lose 4 maximum to a Flourishing Fox. Going up to 22. At this point, I'm not sure that they have the reach to beat me. Like, I will jump with an Ornithopter. It will give -1/-1 to the Alseid, but... you know, we're probably saving ourselves like 12 life by doing that. Another Flourishing Fox. At this point, probably doesn't matter. It's actually preferable. If I were them, maybe would I have cycled the Flourishing Fox? Dranith Healer. And then they've got 1 more cycle in them, so they can gain life and deal 1 to me. +1/+1 on the Flourishing Foxes. So we're taking 12 on the attack here. Depending on how they want to get in. So I can block here and I can pay 4, so I'm only taking 4 on this. This is another 6, making 10, and that's 12. Do I want to swing in with my Ornithopter? Block with my Ornithopter. I think maybe I can avoid it this time, because next time it's worth more life. Blocking next turn. And the +1 on the All the Glitters might matter. Another Adanto Vanguard. Well, that just means that Flourishing Foxes don't matter anymore. Let's get in with the Alseid. Put our opponent to 3, so they're essentially dead if they can't kill us from 16. All that glitters. Up to 17. So I'm losing 8, going down to 9. So if these are worth 9... if this is worth 9, then I lose, because I'm going to be able to block Ornithopter. Yeah, putting all the glitters on anything here except for something that has lifelink is pointless. So I have a block, that's worth 8 points of my life. Ornithopter blocks the Flourishing Fox. So I'm only really taking 12? Something like that? In fact, I don't really even need to pay the 4, do I? So I'm kind of overthinking that. So we just block like this. We got lethal in the air. I don't need to pay any life because I'm going to kill them this turn unless they have an Alseid answer. So now they need to double cycle to deal 12 to me and they can't. Yeah. I was overthinking that a little bit. I'm sure most of you are screaming at me. I get them comments quite a lot. You know, overthinking it. But yeah, I guess the only reason I would want to pay the life there is if I assumed that they would have an answer to Alseid. And this is a very goldfish deck. It doesn't really interact. You can maybe tell by the fact that it's Boros and it has black and blue cards in it that are filling slots that would normally be interaction. So yeah, it's just what it's just trying to do is make a very large creature and swing to the point where you're forced to chump block because you don't have answers anymore. And then obviously, if you've got something to block, the Dranith Stinger finishes off the rest of the damage. But in this particular case, our deck kind of doesn't care about what they're doing. To a certain extent, at least. Like, if we had a Sentinel's Eyes for all seed, this game would have definitely been long over. These guys wouldn't be able to attack, because we'd be able to block as well. We might have been able to block the Flourishing Fox as well, depending on how they want to play it out. It's all assuming how they play around me having a Vigilant creature at that point, of course. But yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Okay then, this is unkeepable. We're going to throw this one on back. This one's also unkeepable. 0 creatures, 0 lands. Don't let this island fool you, it does not exist. So we're going to throw this one on back again. The good news is this deck can actually come back from a low card count, so you don't have to worry too much about your mulls as long as you do eventually find a hand that looks exactly like this. So we're going to get rid of, I think, the All-Seed and 1 land here. We're going to hope that the Adanto Vanguard with double Obsession is going to carry us there. And I dare say he's got a good enough chance. Oh boy, this is going to be quite interesting. Alright, well, if it's the mirror match, then the All the Glitters is very nice to have here as well. I'm happy to pay 4 if our opponent insights up and then swings through. So they got an Obsession and an All the Glitters. So I block. I take 4, because I'm going to take 6 anyway. This way I don't actually give our opponent cards, and I take 2 less damage as well. I would love a land. Did not draw one. Alright, well, if that's the case, I'm just going to go for a staggering insight here then. Kinda sucks we missed a land, honestly, because we could have been drawing 2 cards or having an extra point on our attack. All of these things really matter. Okay, swing for 4. Draw a card. The good news is we got the card advantage. And we did draw a land. We are planning on attacking next turn, and we've already attacked, so the Curious Obsession won't drop off. So if your opponent wants to swing through and deal loads of damage, then they're going to have something like Adanto Vanguard back to stop me from drawing my cards as well. That's what this one's going to come down to. Most of all, I think if I can get myself a Sentinel's Eyes, that would be really good. Oh my god, I'm so good at this game. That means I can swing through, gaining enough life that our opponent pays for, and then we can stop our opponent from drawing as well. And then it basically comes down to... Let me think about this, actually. Should I gain more life? No, I think I'll Sentinel's Eyes up. Yeah, it comes down to who starts flying over, I'm pretty sure. Because we're basically denying each other card advantage at this point. I'm gaining 6, they're paying 4. So I can block their 3/1 Adanto Vanguard now. And I'm perfectly happy to do that. There's an Ornithopter. So that's 1 turn's worth of protection. So they're not gaining any life here. I'm paying 4 to not take 7. And I'm gaining 4 back anyway. So that attack actually was completely pointless, as it turns out. I'm going to go for an All the Glitters. If our opponent's running pacifisms in their deck, then this is going to be a very bad match. It is a reason why I should probably stop putting all of my enchantments onto 1 creature, to be honest. Opponents decided they've had enough. Okay. I honestly don't blame them too much, but if that's the suggestion that they don't have outs to what I'm doing, then it makes sense, I suppose. But until I find flying, this game's not over. Like, if they can get flying and they can start drawing cards, it's all about the card advantage, so it's who can stop getting blocked, essentially, in this particular mirror. Which is the weirdest way to play a game, but Sure as hell is. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. Keep in mind, the deck strength matchmaker is well in effect. There's no doubt in my mind at this point, considering I haven't seen this deck being played at all until I started playing it. Mirror matches abound with this one, so yeah, you might want to even put something like pacifism in this list. I was purely on the aggression because I didn't expect to see mirror matches at all, because, you know, I've already played several times today without seeing this deck, so didn't really need to build around it. But if you're going to go up against mirror matches, then something like pacifism is going to be really useful at getting rid of your opponent's Adanto Vanguards and whatnot. So consider putting something like that in your deck. It would also pump up through your Alder Glitters as well, so that's actually quite useful, as well as just in general being a nice removal spell. So yeah, that's something I would consider adding to the deck if mirror matches are all you're going to see. But then again, I think we all know the conspiracy theory that when you tech against the deck, it stops turning up, so I don't know. Maybe you should do it just so it stops turning up anyway. It's not too much of a trouble, is it? But yeah. Anyway, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and leave a comment down below if you did enjoy today's video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.